After an amazing race at Spain, the fifth round of Formula One headed towards the iconic streets of Monaco from 20th to 23rd May. In this race, the McLaren team announced that they will be using a special one-off livery in the celebration of their partnership with Gulf. In the practice session, it was clear that the Ferrari had a great pace, and on the other hand, Mercedes seemed to lack a lot of pace. In the qualifying session also, Ferrari was the fastest team. In Q3, Charles Leclerc was on provisional pole position and all the other racers were on a flying lap. At that time, Charles Leclerc crashed out and the session was red flagged. And because of it, the local boy Charles Leclerc was on pole position. But a thing to worry was because of the crash, there might be damage on Charles Leclerc's gearbox. So this is what the starting grid looked like. Charles Leclerc starting on pole position with Max Verstappen starting alongside him on P2. Valtteri Bottas outperforming his Mercedes and starting on P3. Carlos Sainz on 4th, Lando Norris on 5th and Pierre Gasly starting on 6th place. A very disappointing qualifying session for Lewis Hamilton as he starts on 7th place with Sebastian Vettel starting on 8th place. Sergio Perez on 9th and Antonio Giovinazzi starting on 10th place. Esteban Ocon on 11th, Daniel Ricciardo on 12th, Lance Stroll on 13th, and Kimi Raikkonen starting on 14th place. George Russell again making it to Q3 and starts on 15th place, with Yuki Tsunoda starting on 16th place. Fernando Alonso on 17th, Nicholas Latifi on 18th, Nikita Mazepin on 19th, and Mick Schumacher starting on 20th place. So, this is what the race results look like. Max Verstappen taking his first ever victory in Monaco, and Carlos Sainz finishing on P2. Lando Norris finishing on podium for the second time this season, and Sergio Perez finishing on P4. Sebastian Vettel on 5th, Pierre Gasly on 6th, Lewis Hamilton on 7th, Lance Stroll on 8th, Esteban Ocon on 9th, and Antonio Giovinazzi finishing on 10th place. Kimi Raikkonen finishing on 11th, Daniel Ricciardo on 12th, Fernando Alonso on 13th, George Russell on 14th, and Nicholas Latifi finishing on 15th place. Yuki Tsunoda on 16th, and Nikita Mazepin for the first time in his career finishes ahead of his teammate on 17th, and Mick Schumacher finishing on 18th place. Very disappointing day for Valtteri Bottas as there was a DNF in front of his name, and a very disappointing day for Charles Leclerc as he did not even start the race. Now, moving on to the review of the race. The reason for Charles Leclerc did not start was not his gearbox, but his left drive shaft on his car, which looked fine but was the main reason for his retirement, and Charles Leclerc keep his 100% record for not finishing the Monaco Grand Prix. Now, moving on to the review of the Mercedes team. At the start of the race, it was a good start for Valtteri Bottas as he almost took the lead of the race at the very first turn. But after that also, he was constantly keeping Max Verstappen under pressure. But Valtteri Bottas' race changed while doing the pit stops. The three of his tires were changed comfortably, but the right front tire was not willing to be changed. The Mercedes mechanics tried their best, but finally, Valtteri Bottas had to retire from the race. Moving on to the other Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, which was totally stuck behind the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. Lewis Hamilton even tried the undercut on him but was unsuccessful and finished only on P7. In all, it was a very disappointing race for the Mercedes team. Now, moving on to the winning team today, that is the Red Bull team. Firstly, talking about Max Verstappen, who comfortably led all the laps of the race, leaving one lap in which he did the pit stop. A very nice drive from the young Dutchman secured him his first ever Monaco GP win, and he also went into the lead of the driver standings for the first time in his whole career. Now, talking about the second Red Bull of Sergio Perez, who rised up to P4 by a very great overcut by the Red Bull team. He was even pressurizing Lando Norris for P3 at the end of the race, but missed out by only 1 second. In all, it was a very amazing day for the Red Bull team. Now, moving on to the Ferrari team, where there was happiness on one side of the garage and disappointment on the other side. After the retirement of Charles Leclerc, all the team's hopes were on the shoulders of Carlos Sainz. After the retirement of Valtteri Bottas, Carlos Sainz rised up to P2 and was in the contention of winning the race, but finally finished on P2 and secured his first ever podium for the Ferrari team. Similar to the Ferrari team, there was happiness on one side of the garage and disappointment on the other side of the McLaren team. A brilliant driver Lando Norris keeping his head calm in final laps and keeping Sergio Perez at bay and finishing on P3 and secured his second podium of the season. And on the other side, it was disappointment for Daniel Ricciardo as he was lapped by Lando Norris and even he finished outside the top 10. It will be a race that Daniel Ricciardo will like to forget as soon as it is possible. Now, moving on to the Aston Martin team, who will also be a very happy team after this race. Firstly, talking about Sebastian Vettel, with the help of a brilliant overcut strategy, he finished on P5. And on the other side of the garage, Lance Stroll also with a brilliant overcut strategy rised up to P8. He was investigated for his pit lane exit, but was safe at the end and finished on P8. Now, moving on to the AlphaTauri team, who also finished in points this race. Firstly, talking about Pierre Gasly, who was doing a fantastic drive and kept Lewis Hamilton at bay until the end of the race. And on the other side of the garage, there was disappointment for Yuki Tsunoda as he was just like stuck on his starting position. Now, moving on to the Alpine team, who will also be very happy with their results. Firstly, talking about Esteban Ocon, who started on P9 and finished on P9 and was able to withstand a late charge from Antonio Giovinazzi. On the other side, Fernando Alonso, after his disappointment in qualifying, was able to make some solid inroads and he finished on P13. Now, moving on to the Alfa Romeo team, who scored their first points of this season. After Antonio Giovinazzi qualifying on P10, he maintained his starting position and finished on P10. On the other side, Kimi Raikkonen was also able to gain some places and finished on P11. Moving on to the Williams team, who are celebrating their 750th race in Formula 1. In the qualifying session, George Russell was able to reach Q3 again and had a good race as he finished on P14. And his teammate Nicholas Latifi was able to make some overtakes and he reached up to P15. Now, moving on to the Haas team, and firstly talking about Nikita Mazepin, who had a great race, did not even spin in one of the session and finished ahead of his teammate. Talking about Mick Schumacher, after his crash in P3, he was not able to take part in qualifying session and finished P18 in the race and was a very poor race for him. Now, moving on to the driver standings after this race. It was Max Verstappen who took the lead of the championship by 5 points over Lewis Hamilton, who is on P2. Lando Norris after this brilliant race rised up to P3 and it was Valtteri Bottas on 4th, Sergio Perez on 5th, Charles Leclerc on 6th, Carlos Sainz on 7th, Daniel Ricciardo on 8th, Pierre Gasly on 9th and Esteban Ocon on 10th place in the championship. Looking at the lower half of the championship, it is Sebastian Vettel on 11th, Lance Stroll on 12th, Fernando Alonso on 13th, and Yuki Tsunoda on 14th place. Antonio Giovinazzi on 15th, Kimi Raikkonen on 16th, George Russell on 17th, Nicholas Latifi on 18th, Mick Schumacher on 19th, and Nikita Mazepin is on 20th place. In the Constructors' Championship also, it was Red Bull who had the lead of 1 point over Mercedes team, with McLaren on 3rd, Ferrari on 4th, Aston Martin on 5th, AlphaTauri on 6th, Alpine on 7th, Alfa Romeo on 8th, Williams on 9th, and Haas, who is on 10th place in the Constructors' standings. In all, it was an amazing day for Max Verstappen as he won the race with Carlos Sainz finishing on 2nd and Lando Norris finishing on 3rd place. And yes, if you are new to this channel, then don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe the channel. Thank you everyone so much for watching and I hope to see you all in the next one.